Shall I start?
Yes.
Just give me a minute. Okay. Okay, I think we'll start now. Huh? Okay, I think so many of you are probably new. A minute. Yeah, okay. So thank you for joining. And quite a few of you have gifted us contributions. So thank you very much for that. So this time, in an unusual way, I'm actually wanting to tell you why we are doing this and what we are doing, right? And so this journey dates back to when I was 22 years old. I was doing engineering and I decided never to work in my life because at that time itself, I realized that something is fundamentally wrong with education because I found that actually nobody's interested in learning. What I mean by learning is not getting good marks. I don't confuse that. Of course, the people are getting 95, 98 on all that, and then becoming a slave somewhere. Cognitive slaves is what modern education creates. So luckily, I was driven by that time itself, never to work and to explore what is happening. Why is all this drama happening in the name of education, where nobody seems to be interested, neither the teachers nor the students. So hello. And then, of course, I started, I did my design education where I found far more people interested in learning. That is when I began to explore why is that some people get interested? What is the condition that enables deep interest? You know, so that again set me off on trying to understand what is the condition that enables people to take interest in learning. Uh, and I'm telling all this because all this is what I want to talk about today in relation to children. What is a child? How does the child learn? What conditions the child requires? You know, because I got all these things from continuously exploring what is learning, what is knowledge, how does it get created, and what are the conditions for, creating knowledge, all that. And so I have been on a continuous research to understand. I would now call it formation of beingness. I won't call it learning. Learning is a term that people use, but I would call it formation of beingness. That's a very, new way of using that. How do we become ourselves is the question that I've been asking. And the unusual thing that I did was that in 1991, I stopped reading completely. 100%. I quit reading completely. And so I began to see, and in that process, understand things that the literate minds don't understand. Literacy traps you into a way of knowing and being, which disables you from natural cognition. So you don't get, what do you call that? A true understanding of cognition primarily because you have been taken out of your natural system given by life to understand the world. Anyway, see, none of this is human creation. Please understand this. Humans think, seems to think that they are great, great guys, So this is all wrong, actually. It is life that is functioning through us. That's all. Please understand, And the more ego you have, the less possibility for life to function through you. It's very simple, you know. So, uh, so basically, I have been challenging this whole modern paradigm of education, which of course started in the West, now spread throughout the world, because all educated are now trapped in the same paradigm, which the West got trapped right from the beginning, from the 15th, 16th century when printing press got established. They got trapped into a way of knowing and being, which completely takes them away from life. Of course, they can create all kinds of ideas in their head, because idea generation has no end. But perception has end. What you see, your five senses gives you what life is all about. That's all, So I also want to say one very important thing, that in the Western science paradigm, they use this term objective knowledge. And I fundamentally challenge this idea of objectivity, because the moment you function for personal reasons, you lost objectivity. Objectivity basically means you have absolutely no access to grind, that you have no personal desire either to control the world, to make money, all kinds of things, to get Nobel Prize. All these are biases of the mind. And the other tragedy is that the rational mind by default is a non-objective mind, because it cannot achieve objectivism, because rationality comes from ego. The more ego you have, the less objective you become. So I want to say that objectivity can only happen when you engage with the world subjectively, which means using your senses, you engage with the world, because only through senses you can understand what the world is all about. The rest is a story that you can make in your head, whatever you want, And when you have no personal desire, that is when you are able to achieve objectivity. So before I start the presentation, I like to have some, proposals. I feel that today, especially with the coming of AI, that modernity has reached this dead end. And they are making up all kinds of stories and more stories, but no, they are at a dead end, because there is no difference between the AI and modern educated people. They function exactly in the same way. That what are you? What is an educated person? What does it mean? That you've read 10,000 books? The more you read, the more PhD you get. That's all. That's only the difference. So when you read a book, you are nothing but analyzing somebody else's information. So right from childhood, what you do is to rewire your cognitive system, to analyze information, to store information, to create a memory system based on language, and to become an analyzer of information, right? None of your senses ever work in the act of cognition. And this is precisely what AI is all about. AI uses second-hand information in a much more efficient manner than the way educated are using now. Because I don't have to waste time on anybody now. I can just, Google, use AI and find all kinds of answers, And the educated can never match that. So I think it is extremely important that you actually, without fear, because I think I'm going to scare you. I don't have to scare you. You will get scared. I don't have to do that. When I say that the educated are cognitively damaged, that the educated actually has no knowledge, they have knowledge delusion, an assumption that they know, and because of the ego built up, they will not be able to even reflect on it because their ego says that we're educated. So the ego actually, creates a shield against you, not fundamentally exploring what is learning. You know. So I'm. Oh, my interest is that today the only people that will become deeply interested in children are parents. Let me assure you this. No cognitive scientists, because none of them have a personal meaning in this exploration. But parents do have. Many parents have started not sending their children to school, have started exploring all kinds of things. But they are still trapped in the same paradigm of modernity. This is the problem. And unless you're able to learn from children, because children is life, you are dead. Please understand this. You're only newspapers, you're just papers stitched together. That's all. Children are alive. They are using their senses. They are exploring the world. They have a natural cognitive system. They have intuition. All their senses function. They are not linear. You know? So my proposal is that in 2006, my proposal is that, and I'm purposely calling it Mother's Gathering, you know, because what you see, whole modern parenting is very masculine. Modern parenting is masculine. Anything to do with modernity is masculine. So what is important is that we should form a mother's gathering where we have to set up absolutely fresh research on children. What I mean by research is not the regular book reading research. No, I'm talking about absolute observation, unbiased observation of children, and document them, share with people, and learn from each other. And regain your innate intelligence, which is already there, which is what children come with. So I thought, let me do this right in the beginning itself. And the second thing is that, as you can see, that we have been on a journey for almost 30 years now. We are not an organization. We are just 2-3 friends working on this with absolutely no support at all of any kind. So we are now requesting you to support us in whatever manner possible. It can start with monetary support. You can also take part in various kinds of collaborative research that we are setting up. We also need support in all kinds of, digital tools and things like that, because none of us have that kind of understanding of these things. So, development of websites, and because I think all these tools are very important to use so that we reach as many people as possible. And the other thing is that after this presentation is over, please ensure that every day you tell at least 2 people about this thing that we are doing, because this must spread. Very few people know about the need to learn from children, because all kinds of parenting workshops will tell you how to teach them, how to control them, how to do this, how to do that. It's all about how. And do you know the biggest tragedy of modern humans? That they have stopped learning. Because learning is actually an act of creation of knowledge. It begins with observation. It begins with understanding through observation, which means actually you authentically are creating knowledge. You're not analyzing some Gabor Mate's information. No, he's a great guy. Please don't mix it up. Huh? He is one of the most important, thinker on children, Gabor Mate. So, but what I'm telling is that, there is a very interesting saying in the Zen Buddhist tradition. In the Zen Buddhist tradition, there's a very interesting saying. That is, if you meet Buddha on the way, kill him. Which actually means that, and Buddha also says one very important thing, that work out your own salvation. I have nothing to teach you. This means that all of us are authentic, original. We are all live, capable of learning. And that is what we, in exchange, to become an analyzer, this is what we give up. This is what education does to you. So it's very important that many people collaborate and become learners and come together to to re-understand children. And of course, we have several projects that we are thinking of. We have something called Womb Wisdom. There are many projects which maybe if you're interested, another time we can talk about. So, all right. So with this, let me just start the presentation. Maybe that is better. Right. So as you can see, one very important thing is that the more we are concerned about our children, my child, the less you will understand life. There are two things that we must do. First of all, it is our authenticity that matters. There's nothing wrong with children. Whatever needs to be done has to be done with ourselves. So, childhood is a time when what they need is a space for awakening. And who awakens the child is the world. World includes us also. The context in which the child is, it can either become a conditioning space or an awakening space. So in modernity, the parents, ready-made toys, screens, products, everything is actually conditioning the child and no space for awakening. So the first few years is the time when children develop the whole system actually. The whole system means the content of learning, the process of learning, the tools for learning, and of course, what I call as the cognitive foundation. So what happens today is that children are completely taken away from this with all kinds of expertise, all kinds of tools, all kinds of toys, and taken them completely away from natural evolvement. And so the child is completely taken away from the real world, and all kinds of silly gadgets are given to them. Which actually means that we become non-humans in that process. Actually, I call human beings are becoming human thinkings. So I keep hearing this idea that many young people say, many people say that I like to be with children. I want to help them, play with them, teach them. Actually, you should, when you have such an idea, you should actually think it is for children or for your own sake. I find that this is coming from selfishness, not from true love for children. It's like this, when you say you like flowers, do you plug them and take it in the room or you just leave them alone there? That's the same thing that we do with children. If you truly love children, then respect them, respect their, autonomy, respect their cognitive independence. So, as I told you, modern parenting is an environment of distress is created by continuous help, and let me just show you what I've written. Continuous help and control, teaching. So there is first of all, they themselves don't trust life. And that gets instilled in children. That children feel that they have to be dependent on the adult for their learning. Of course, the children has to depend on an adult, but an adult who is authentic and original. That would make the difference to the child, you know. So they begin to distrust everything about life, actually, in the process. So first, I will take the three things that I mentioned in the poster. One is the toy, but how toy completely kills natural cognition completely. You know, because these days the modern Western science have now started talking. Scientists have started talking about play. And that has been promoted like anything. Play has to be there, playfulness, and everybody is into play. But they never talk about with what you play. You know, so this is where the problem arises. That they never think about what is the natural content for learning. For them, learning means learning, from books and reading and or things like that. So what a ready-made toy does is to divert the attention from real world, which also stops spontaneous exploration of the world. Because actually what children have is playfulness, and whatever uh, objects that come in their way is turned into a toy. In fact, children doesn't have a term called toy or non-toy. Any object is explored playfully. That's all. We call them toys, but for children, there is no difference. And in that process, actually, children learn materiality, form, function, process, structure, and of course, all the other aspects of, knowledge development. For example, uh, you know, we learn to speak very well, but we also imbibe the grammar of language. No conscious learning took place, but implicitly we understood how languages or sentences are held together, which means we know grammar. Similarly, uh, we actually create implicit knowledge of the world as we engage with things. And so fundamentally, there's no difference between, no. So when we create a word called learning, that is when we create a confusion about what, to a child, that what they are doing is not learning. Learning is something that they have to do with the adult. So then you create a complete confusion, and a dichotomy is created between play and learning. This is what modernity does actually. And the second thing is that, so I purposely actually kept screens, because usually when, in modernity, when we talk about screens, we are only thinking about digital screens. Actually, the first screen that destroys children's cognition are the books. Literates will find it very difficult to understand this, but I think, uh, you know, we have to use our common sense and re-explore these things. That what if the brain is flexible and fragile and pliable, then whatever we do will rewire our brain. So if the digital tools are rewiring the brain, then the textual tools also will rewire the brain. You know, so the first thing that needs to be understood is how literacy rewires the brain and changes the cognition from sensory experience, creation of knowledge, to mere analysis, reading, thinking, and analyzing information. And how it forces shifting from experience to abstraction. And what it actually does is that it replaces your senses system with thinking system. That is what actually happens. So symbolic processes mean thinking, actually ideating, thinking, analyzing. This all has to do with language. So naturally the world is removed from our experience. Of course, this is far more dangerous because in the digital tools, some of the senses are what gets used. So we don't use all the senses, but senses are used in a very, very distorted manner. So uh, this also, I mean, far more dangerous to a child than the the textual tools. But actually, if you remember probably your young days when you were absorbed in a book that you liked very much, you know, there is no difference between that absorption and the absorption that this modern gadgets put you into. It's the same thing actually, whether you get absorbed in a book or you get absorbed in a digital tool. So in the digital tool, it is far more harmful than the textual tool. That the only thing is that the textual tool nobody has studied as a damage at all. But I think it is high time that we look at that and re-study this. So it is the world that should awaken us. The processes that happens in the world, you know, only that can actually awaken us to our true potential. So in between, let me take a advertisement gap. Do gift us when you if you feel like. So see, one thing that I want to tell you is that, as I told you, people are really afraid to explore this at a very fundamental level. So what I would like to request you is that try to understand what is the ideal. Don't worry whether it is practical or not. At least in the beginning, you should not worry about that. Once you understand what is the ideal, what should be the right kind of environment, only then, depending upon each of our context, do what is possible. This is very important to understand. So somebody who has a possibility of going to a village and staying there, that's good. But somebody who cannot go but has to remain in the city, then what is it that minimum that we can do that can reduce the damage that we do to children? See, we have to actually looking at the context of modernity. We can only talk about reducing the damage. It is very, very difficult to uh, otherwise, you'll have to get away completely from modernity and find spaces where modernity is not included, which is very, very difficult actually, in the present times. So let me take you through some basic premise of this exploration. Number one is that life sustains itself through us. You know, our life, what I meant, life is our life, So this is the most fundamental impulse actually. To sustain life endorses with all that is essential, which means we are already born with everything that is required to sustain life. So we have an inherent value orientation. So understanding value becomes the most important aspect of human development, because value is not something that is human made, it is given by life. And life's value is to sustain life. That is the bottom line. So the capacity to intuitively know and make sense of the world is the second thing, that we all are given ability to understand the world. What I mean by this is that all living beings, not just humans, all living beings are living in knowing. The knowledge is essential for survival of all living beings. And in the process, we also learn
पिंक कलर की बैग
how to create knowledge and how to respond, how to do things. This is also part of the process, actually. So, these fundamental questions are based on why, what, how. These are existential questions embedded in us. It's not something that we ask, but it is already present in our being. And we continue the basic premise. The context and conditions shape our beingness. You know, it can actually nurture the wholeness and ground us or bring about fragmentation, alienation. Both are possible. The context and condition is what dictates our formation. Simple thing is that all the mother tongue that we speak is because of the context. You know, in Bangalore slums, children can speak, not only slums, even in general, Bangaloreans, children speak about minimum 3 to sometimes 5 languages. It's the context that dictates it. Whatever is in the context is what shapes us. This is actually a fundamental premise, actually. So it's the same thing. So your neural network is what uh, shapes your cognitive system. That is what has to do with your cognition, and of course your behavior. The whole system is shaped depending upon the context. So when we rely on ready-made knowledge rather than creating meaning through real lived context, we become mechanical, dependent, fragmented, and ultimately alienated from life. So you see, the ready-made knowledge is what also has made us, the educated parents, dictatorial. Because see, this whole knowledge, modern knowledge process is hierarchical. There is somebody who knows, and there are people who doesn't know. So it's already created hierarchy. And our experience of being in the classroom is actually to establish this hierarchy, because we are constantly taught. So children are born in existential freedom, trusting life, living in truth beyond dualities. And this is what modern parents start imposing, because we have no idea about what freedom is. We think freedom is what we give. Actually, we take away their freedom and then give them in installments. All children are born in existential freedom. And the moment we talk about freedom, we are actually almost denying it from them, because they should exist in freedom without even having that word. They should just be there, you know. And this is what actually enables them to trust life, to be in autonomy, to be authentic and original. So, literates are shaped by the word, ready-made, second-hand, generating imagined imaginations, and constructing the world in response to the need of the mind. Illiterates are shaped by the world. They create culture in response to the need of the body. So culture basically means not song and dance. That is a modern interpretation. Culture actually means that a space created in our authentic engagement with the context, which means that it is the context that gives us what knowledge is required. Because culture is actually culmination of knowledge, value, and our sense of beauty. And digitates are shaped by the digital, which is also ready-made and second-hand, producing virtual imaginations and fabricating culture in response to a need of a completely distorted being. And of course, you can see learning has become a separate activity. It is decontextualized, devoid of emotions in a very different way, you know, because that emotion has nothing to do with the process of learning. It has nothing to do with the content of learning. Again, I want to clarify this. Natural learning is a term that we are temporarily giving. There is actually nothing called natural learning. But for us to step from our ready-made knowledge system into a natural way of being, we will have to take a term like this, natural learning. So actually, had run a school a few years ago. I want to show you some spontaneous activities that children were doing, This is their bike. So we look at what is the fundamental principle of cognitive science. Children learn what they experience. In fact, children imbibe what they experience. So when they are with teachers, they imbibe teacher behavior. So when they are with parents who are authoritarian, who are helping, who are controlling, they imbibe all these behaviors. So they imbibe to teach, to control, but never to learn. So actually, learn meanings you are open to what is happening. That is what actually learning means. A learning mind is a mind that is not responding to ready-made knowledge. That is open to exploration, open to observation. And this open to exploration is actually what is called as playfulness. It has nothing to do with play in the modern sense. Playful mind is an open mind which is willing to, which explores. Actually, it's wrong to use the word willing to explore because that is how children are not willing to explore. They explore. That is the way their system is made. You know. So for children to be learners, to be open, what we need is parents and teachers who are learners, who are open, who are exploring, who are respecting children's exploration. So children are born with original nature of life. Life wants to sustain life and to maintain life. So the condition of trust is actually already given by life. This is what we take away by all this kind of things that we do. So there is this assumption in the modern mind that people have been always living in fear. So they have this, created this, phrase called, what is it? Fright of flight. Fight of flight. No, sorry. Yeah. It is fight or flight. It seems that is the mode of being all the time. And they were living in fear, you know. I think these are all assumptions of the modern mind. Actually, no living being is living in fear. See, actually, if you go to the very difficult situation areas, children often don't experience fear until you create fear in them. They would think that that is normal. Whatever is happening is natural, you know, because we are not meant to be afraid of things. We are meant to trust life, you know. So I will take you through some of the, explorations we have done through documentation and show you some of the, proofs of what we are talking about actually. So playfulness is a cognitive activity. There is not, these are not separate activities. It is through playful exploration of the world, children make sense of the world, you know. So they turn every activity into play in that sense. So it's playfulness that is more important. That is the basis, and not play. And any object is turned into toy. As I told you earlier, there is no separate terminology for toy. Every object is a potential play object. Let's call it like that, you know. So this is what we need to understand. So unless our mind is clear from all this junk ideas, we will not be able to appreciate whatever the child is doing. For example, every child, when they sit on a sofa, start bouncing. Every child does that. They sit on a sofa, they start bouncing. And I can assure you that most parents will, ask the child to stop doing that. But if you understand that is the very nature of the child, then you will stop. Because actually children are exploring the materiality. It is because of the sponge, the springiness that the child is bouncing. Because that they won't do it on a rigid surface. Because it is flexible, they will start doing that. But we have to be very clear about it. Now, why are children doing things? And how, when we interfere, they stop the true exploration of the world. So there are many such words that needs to be redefined. Play is one, toy is another. So I'll tell you one very interesting exploration. All these terms are a little problematic. Anyway, so this child this a coconut piece in his hand. He took a bite. He saw that, immediately the child remembered the bull's horn, right? You can see it here, right? And immediately the child remembered the half moon. So quickly, the child started comparing similarities of form. Actually, that is what I meant earlier about how children explore form. Form meaning how something looks like something else. That is what form means. Actually, and this is the principle by which they recreate toys. So that very coconut piece is enough for the child to act like a bull's horn. So there is one more definition for play. Play is the reenactment of experience by recreating and reliving that experience. And whatever objects that are used as props in this reenactment of experience is what is toy. So any object can be, can become that. Of course, again, I want to clarify that toy is our term. Children don't call it toy. For them, at that point, that is what it is. So this is one friend had actually shared this experience that they were with a child. They were sitting in some meeting, some get together, and somebody was using a flute playing. So she happened to get the flute. So immediately the first thing she did was to play it, and then she turned that into a balloon, a walking stick, a gun. All kinds of things began to happen just from that. And within a matter of few minutes, she recreated many experiences, just from one object. And this is what children do continuously. And this can only happen if the child is in experience. Unless they see the world, experience the world, none of this recreation will happen actually. So in that sense, ready-made toys are more dangerous than schools. In fact, ready-made toys come much earlier than schools, no? So naturally, they condition the child to become users of products. So consumerism is the first training that we do to a child is to become a consumer. So we have to see everything in process actually. So in fact, what children create has a developmental aspect. So there is a developmental process that has to do with what children do actually. So there are stages in toy making, and this gets killed when you give ready-made toys to a child. So I want to clarify this before I go into the next one. You see, whatever the child experiences, that becomes the child's recreation as what we call as play. You know, so a child becomes a mother, starts feeding all that around the time when the child also experiences the same thing. But when you give a Barbie doll or a doll to a child, they continue this till they are 12, 13, or whatever age, All this stuff, toys, everything becomes part and parcel of their life only because we are actually creating, interfering with the natural, I would, maybe it's a wrong term, but let me call it natural toy making activity. Again, clarifying that what I mean is that recreation of experience. So I'm sure all of you must have seen that when children go to school, they come back and play teacher games, but they don't do it before that. And after a point, you stop that. You play some other games. So if you look at from the time they start recreating experiences to about 12 years, you can see there are stages in that. But the moment you give them ready-made stuff, it completely stunts the natural exploration of the world. So he doesn't need a so-called toy. That palm is becoming the phone. And this you can see every time you can see this, what children do. Their body becoming the toy. A selfie with a spoon. A greeting card becoming a laptop. Pen caps becoming, for drumming. And of course, when children are in the nature, things that they find in nature becomes their, thing that they explore. So a seed that bursts with water is what they're exploring, So anything and everything around them. So in a village situation, the birds there, the animals, the plantation, everything becomes their object of exploration. See, all this used to be a very, very common thing in the rural areas, and spontaneous. That stick is the vehicle, a similar thing, but here, of course, that is an eatable, So I'm sure all of you have seen this, all the five fingers will have, they insert these things and eat. Two combs becoming a aeroplane. They don't call it toy. They call it aeroplane. So you see, the biggest problem I think that we need to confront is to understand what is knowledge. Because that is where all modern educators are trapped. So what we have been doing is a few of us, few parents have come together. We are systematically documenting children in a very, very minute manner and trying to understand how each of these things work. We look at values and how children are helpful all the time, how they are, so the value development, sensory development, language development, and what we also call as implicit knowledge creation, which includes what we call as biophysics, biomathematics, understanding of measurement. That is what it means, but without numerals. So these are sensory level understanding of the world, but the same principles come into play. That how do you quantify, you know, how do you understand force? If you remember how that child was lifting that stone, that brick, how he kept it in front of the staircase, that stair, you know, ladder. Very clearly, there is an understanding of physics that has happened. You know, so let me take you through a very simple video which very clearly shows this. You know, where there is measurement, where there is taking risk. You know, you see. So this is the natural condition for learning, meaning exploring the world, understanding the world. That there is no teacher, so you are in the realm of unknown. You're open. You are engaging with the real world. There's nobody teaching. Most fundamental condition context that is required, you know. And what happens is that natural processes are at work. So their learning system is getting opened up. Child is playfully exploring. So this is what is called as playful exploration. You know, trying out, implicit knowledge creation is happening, understanding of things are taking place. So this is how a scientist does. You know, there is mathematical calculation that is taking place, laws of physics are being imbibed, you know. So please don't immediately come to conclusion how would they know formula and all that. No, I'm not talking about that. Exactly the way all of us know grammar, but if I ask you grammar, will you be able to answer? You won't. Precisely, grammar is implicitly embedded in us so that we are able to speak very well. Simple. Similarly, life embeds laws of physics and mathematics and all that embeds implicitly in you so that you can function. And so this is where actually intelligence, creativity, adventure, you know, exploration, resilience, no fear, all this actually takes place in this particular aspect.
Mm.
You cannot have a value education and then teach them all this nonsense. No. You cannot have intelligence development somewhere else, creativity development in another workshop. No, that cannot happen at all. These are all modern misunderstanding about what is creativity, what is intelligence, all that actually, you know. None of that can be taken away from the actual context of exploration that the child does. All right. So you must understand that there is a major part in us which is totally biologically bound. So this is something that has been completely taken away from modern understanding of schooling. It's as if we have separate tools for everything, you know, and that it is in our control. Then absolutely nonsensical thing. So the tools, qualities, attitudes, all these are part and parcel of this. So uh, I will slowly finish the presentation and have some time for talking about this. So I'm just showing you some invitations for what we could be doing together if people are interested, you know. So one of the things that we are doing is we are doing what is called as observation journaling, where systematically on an everyday basis, parents are observing, documenting, sharing, and then once in a while, uh, talking about this. So we have various aspects in that. Now we look at senses, how it functions, development of values. All these aspects are explored in that. Aesthetic awareness, implicit knowledge, language development, sense of humor, energy levels. So all these aspects are being explored by us afresh because you see, we are also looking at what is actually child right, because that has been now constructed by modern minds. Now, what they think is child right. We need to fundamentally challenge that because what is child right? I think schooling is the biggest, damage that we do to children. That is not the right of the child at all, actually. But that is what is being constructed as the right of the child. Absolute nonsense. Right of the child is to respect what life has given to the child, not what we think what the child requires. So we are also, having these events called revillaging events where parents come together, spend few days with no toys, no instructions, no agenda, especially for children. But parents' role is to observe, document, and learn and spend some time on, understanding children afresh. So parents do have some task which will actually help them to undo the damages that modernity has already done to them. So you can see some of the, some simple activities that I want to show you. Children just put together a few chairs and that became their train. And sometimes inside it was an aeroplane and this train was going somewhere. So they don't require anything actually. Few, coconut leaves put together and that became their house, you know. So this is happening in Kerala. Few. Then, of course, we have another very interesting activity called being in beauty. Again, this, what is damaging is that we get trapped in what is called as art. Art is a very egoistic preoccupation, and that will never take you to true beauty. Beauty will open up only when you approach it without your egoistic ideas, about you creating. Beauty is already present. That can we merge in that? Can we sense it, feel it, and understanding at a being level, not at the mind level? So, and of course, the other thing is to create, organize, centers that we basically challenge the modern understanding of all these things, whether it is culture, cognition, childhood, and all that. And and one of the most important activities that book that we have created is book called Seeing with Hands, which is actually documentation of uh, 3 years of children's drawings. So we ran a school, and in 3 years we have been documenting what children have been doing. And what we found is that drawing basically is a cognitive activity. It is nothing to do with art. Art, again, like toy, is a modern construct. If you don't interfere with children at all, whatever they are doing is to understand the world. So, so the activities that they do spontaneously are cognitive activities to understand the real world. And drawing is an activity that they do to understand three-dimensional world in terms of two-dimensional space. So you need to actually create spaces for enabling children to draw, but without any, any comments, any, what you call that, any teaching, nothing like that. So, and of course, I've just finished this book called Awakening Beauty. Again, coming from fantastic work that children have done, how they effortlessly create beauty. Absolutely no ego involved. They don't even know it is beautiful. That is the best part. So these are few things that I think that need to be completely revisited. So, I mean, I actually don't promote reading at all, but I feel that one can use this to stop reading. In fact, the book that made me stop reading was a book called Walden. And Walden is written by Thoreau. His experience of living in Walden Pond, near Walden Pond, and something to do with experience. So, as I told you earlier about the Zen Buddhist saying, there is another very interesting saying by the Zen Buddhism, which is that books are like finger pointing at the moon. You know, what happens to modern educated is that they get trapped in the finger. They don't look at the moon. So the book is actually a pointer. So what I'm hoping to do is to what I call as creating few books, which I call them see-through books. So these books are to see through and understand the world. Don't get trapped in the books. Because I think it is very important to redefine terms. Otherwise, you will see everything in the term that Western culture has created, whether it is learning, in every word actually, creativity, learning, progress, development. I mean, you tell any word, we can actually redefine it and see it in a very, very different manner, which is actually the way how life functions. Not something that the mind has created. So I'm stopping here, and maybe we can quickly have some little bit of uh, just give me a minute. I think the battery is running low. Just give me 1 minute. Just put it up. Yeah, yeah. Okay, done. Right, 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 right.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So, how do we help them make healthy identities?
Pardon, pardon.
Like, my name is my name. I can choose to take a new name creatively if I grow up. This happens more with.
You see, I think this is, I was just thinking yesterday, you know, that my feeling is that we should tell them, or it is to us, we should now start telling that I shouldn't say that my name is Jinan. I should say that I am given the name Jinan. That's all actually. It's not very important. Name is temporary. It's like you can call mango, tango, pango, pango. Mango remains the same, no? You see? See, the problem of identity is beyond name. We get so trapped in all kinds of identities. The context without name, you know, that is what actually is. So when we call India, what does it mean actually? We have named it, that's all, na? Bhopal, Delhi. But we get so trapped into this. It's the same thing. I think
So,
so.
just a
So I
follow
find
up
that,
on that.
see, this name becoming very, very important is a modern problem. I think we don't have to be so
Jinanji,
caught up with this.
just to ground that question, one small snippet is this: that I am a very good low rep learner. When I started engaging with you on beauty, I was able to get there very, very fast. Like some people get very fast, some take time. So I'm a very good low rep learner. Now, how do I that that is somehow part of how I identify myself. That how I'm open, how how do we help them create an identity that they can use low rep learning, high rep learning both is where the question is grounded.
I think when you're engaging with, see, there are two things. One is that first we start dealing with ourselves, you know, number one. Second is that in the context of a child, so and only in that process we will be able to respect the child. What I mean by respect is when you don't interfere in the child's life, meaning what I mean by that is constant teaching, constant helping, constant telling, don't do this, don't do that, all kinds of things. Then you are respecting the cognitive autonomy of the child. And that becomes, see, one other very, very important thing which is extremely damaging in modernity is that how we purposely create ego in children. So I believe that our natural beingness is uh, at the same time what I can call as particular and general. What I mean by this is that the I and the other coexist. The community and the individual coexist. Are you getting my point? The ego and the non-ego coexist. So the collective beingness is what we are. Within that, we also function as individuals. So we don't deny our individuality. We embrace that also along with our collective beingness. That is the natural way of being. What modernity does is to take away the collective completely and establish an ego very strongly. That is why we are so much caught up with all this identity and things like that. Otherwise, it's a, much simpler thing actually. Yes, Kiran, unmute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening. Actually, I just found that this is a very good perspective. Like what
Slightly
you have
louder,
told, like
please.
it is.
Louder. Huh.
Sir, you're not able to hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yes.
Sir, actually, the main focus is that you mean to say that the conditioning that we create for the child will really rob all the natural, whatever the acumen they have, or whatever um, the talent they have, or whatever it is. Like it will rob them because we are conditioning them with our own maybe our toys or whatever the instructions or whatever you are telling. That is
Yeah.
true. But now that in our modern society, all this is already happening because of various reasons. So now,
Yeah.
how can we overcome this? And maybe how do we create that, maybe that again, environment for a child so that he may regain it? So that is a very great challenge. So
No.
what
Yeah.
steps can we do?
Yeah. See, the harm modernity has done is immense. Please understand this. Modernity has actually destroyed our fundamental knowledge of life. You see, you go to anybody who is living in a small village, or you check with your grandparents, grandparents, their knowledge of existential knowledge is far more than modern educated people. Whether it is about what is the right food to eat, or so not only knowledge they have destroyed, they also have destroyed any possibility of recovery. Because what you get today is poisonous food, poisonous water, polluted air, you know. So at every level, what need is a very, very deep and authentic work is required. So that's why I'm telling na, that it is very important to understand what needs to be done and then start working on it at various levels from wherever you are located. And the first and foremost responsibility is to recover our being. Second, only the child. So can I learn little bit of farming, for example? Because I find that I identify something called as foundational knowledge that is required for sustaining life. Farming is one of that. First aid knowledge of health is important. Not this allopathic medicine, going and getting an acid. No, I'm not talking about that. That is not first aid at all. First aid is what is available in your house. Whether what is good for what good as ginger can do. Anything that is not a medicine in the conventional sense that has always been used for healing. Tulsi or I mean, there are so many things that in the Indian kitchen that is available, no? But how many of us know? How many of us know? So I think it is extremely important to recreate an environment where things are being practiced and not taught. That's very important. So only when we get into practice, without language, learning should take place. The more language you use, the more Mendel you become. That's a problem. Because language has actually hardly any role to play. It's a very, very low grade cognitive tool, actually, or cognitive source, actually. It is the real world that is the cognitive source, not written words. So it is very important that we practice many of these things, recover some skill, and be in process so that children will naturally start imbibing these qualities from us. Yeah. Rajendra.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good evening. Sir, it's going really well. The question I had was, when you say that at school, children actually learn to teach, and actually what they are supposed to, what is supposed to happen is they need to learn. So when I wasn't very sure how, if you are a teacher, then how do you actually learn with the children, so that they are imbibing learning?
No, you have to completely
Instead of teaching.
reimagine the space. You have to reimagine the space. We don't need teachers at all. What we need is farmers, carpenters, weavers, doctors around us. That's it.
Okay.
We don't need teachers at all. We don't need people who talk all the time. We need people who are doing all the time. That's all what we need. So you have to reimagine completely our more spaces for children. A cognitively rich environment is an environment where we are all authentically engaging with our whole being. It can be even, say, I don't like to call it science experiments, they are another nonsensical term. But if you are interested in science, explore it. For example, I would say that I would call grammar the science of language. Grammar, the science of language. So if actually one of you are interested, why don't you explore that? Not with children, but for your own sake. So never do anything for children, do for you. That authenticity that children also will pick up. Otherwise, they will also start acting like you, na? When you do for children, children also do for somebody else. Don't do that.
Right.
Don't pretend. Be absolutely committed to whatever you are interested in doing.
So, but in that case, how will education look like? How will a school look like? Let's say I have, my children, of course, have grown up now. But for somebody who's just had, children who are about, let's say, 3, 4, or 5 years old, how do we begin actually? If there is a school.
You see, I think we have to first erase. The problem is that we already have something in our head which is not allowing us to see. Our imagination of school should completely go away.
Okay.
As teachers sitting and doing all that, So it has to be a complete reimagination. See, I feel that any village is a natural space for learning. And if you can see, there are many things that you can learn from a natural village, an organic village. Number one is that there is always activity happening there. Number one. Secondly, there is always different age groups happening there.
Yeah.
Unlike a school where you only meet your age people, that is absolutely unnatural.
Mm.
So any grouping that you see in a village is very organic, where small children, about 4 or 5 different age groups are congregating together. And you can also see there are organic groupings. For example, up to 7, there is one kind of grouping. Around 12 to 8, there is another kind of grouping. Understand, na? So,
Yes.
so they are actually, see, it's like this, that the content of knowledge never changes, unlike what we think in modern education.
Okay.
We are always, the content is changing, no?
Mm-hmm.
So the content of knowledge never changes. For example, when we are learning our mother tongue, did we start with ABCD? Was there any reduction that took place? Did they simplify it for you? No. You encountered the mother tongue with all its complexity. It's a child who simplified it, not you.
Very true.
So we should encounter world, its complexity as it is.
Mm-hmm.
The child will simplify it. Trust the child, because trust life. So the biggest problem of modern educated is absolute distrust of life. They would, that's why this whole problem modernity has created is, I think, one of the worst words. I was identifying 3, 4 worst words that cheats you. One is scientific. You see, absolute nonsensical. Anybody who is talking about it will say, no, science is proving it. What nonsense, yeah. Well, life has shown you. You must have the courage to say, life is teaching me more than the scientist. This is the problem of modern educated, that they are completely trapped by second-hand ideas. When life can tell you what it is, if you are absolutely observant of life, life will tell you what life is. So I
Yes.
find this absolute tragedy that this Ayurvedic people will go and tell, no, now it is proved by science. What nonsense, yeah. It has been there practicing for hundreds, thousands of years. Why does it needs a certification from the silly Western systems? And this is the problem of a colonized mind.
Yeah.
You have to assert, no, this is the process. So today the whole operating system of modernity is based on the West. Whatever dictates that the West does, everybody follows it. So it is high time so I am not patriotic at all. Please understand this. I have no patriotism at all. So when I say these things, I am not against anybody. What I'm telling is that every human being is authentic and original. That needs to be regained. And this is also for the Westerner, because they are also absolutely damaged. And their damage is far more dangerous because they think they know everything. They have progress. They are civilized. That is their trap. I'm talking about all these MITs and all these great institutions who talk, especially their cognitive science.
Yes.
You just take one example. Take philosophy. Is the best example to tell how crude Western philosophy is. How crude. You must begin to ask, what is philosophy? How does philosophy arise in you? You see, till before Socrates or around that time, it was never a book reading activity that turned into philosophy. It was engaging with life that created philosophers. Am I right?
Right.
It is experience that made you wonder about life, and philosophy, it came out of that wonder. It did not come out of reading some 10 to 15 books. I'll tell you the best part. There is something called phenomenology in the Western philosophy, phenomenology. Now, phenomenology came, was a result of understanding that something is fundamentally wrong with the Western way of looking at philosophy. So they felt that it is phenomenology, phenomena, and understood now. So they began to talk about experiencing phenomena as the premise for understanding. So that became a philosophical stream.
Okay.
Heidegger and people like that. There are few people who started exploring body and all that. But now you look at the phenomenologists. They read Heidegger and talk about phenomenology. Hasn't it completely killed itself? This is the problem.
Mhm.
So every opportunity is there for recovery, but you kill it by reading another book. This is the problem. Anyway, I'm planning to write a very interesting article. And there is something called so it's very interesting to study the development of modern cognitive science. And you look at the whole fallacy of that thing. First of all, cognitive science, modern cognitive science began in technology departments. You check with anybody in the modern, people who are sitting here, that look at where is cognitive science located in any university. Isn't it a technology subject?
Mhm.
I'm asking you, isn't it a technology subject? It is located in technology departments. Understand? That is the whole problem.
Yeah.
Is it cognitive science? Should it be in technologies departments?
It's everybody's innate.
This is the
Even
problem. And then what you do is that, and then they make more and more stories about what is wrong with that. And then they talk about something called as embodied cognition. But all from reading books. This is the problem. So you're now talking about body, but based on your reading on books. So having to kill the body in the whole process.
yeah.
Yeah. Abhay?
Hi, Jinan. I'm in your talk at BIC in Bangalore. You made a reference to Angie play, and that kind of caught my attention in China, the early education approach, which
Yeah.
seemed embodying a lot of the principles kind of that you're talking about. But still, when I kind of looked at their approach, there seem to be some things which seem, let's say, inconsistent with what you've been talking about. Like, for example, I don't know what you think about the practice of them using the videos and asking child to reflect on their own videos,
No.
etc., as
Actually, there are
approaches.
lots of mistakes in that. I
So,
don't know too much about it. I only looked at some of the things, and suddenly I found that two Americans handling that. I realized now they have killed it completely. See, Americans don't
hmm,
understand these things. Let me tell you this. They are from MIT. Some two characters are there. Completely killed the spirit of Angie Play. This is what I feel.
hmm,
I think if they move out of this Western paradigm and look at Angie Play more in a Chinese philosophy, rural, I think that would have been done the much better. So there are many mistakes in that. They have took some part, but then completely killed the spirit of that whole thing. All this reflection. So they have not understood children in a deep
hmm.
manner.
But just maybe to like, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on if we were to take Angie Play as a starting point, and what would be the tweaks we would
No
make
starting
to.
point. Angie Play cannot be the starting point. If you want any
Okay.
starting point, it should be our experiment that we did in 2011.
Hmm.
Any starting point on you see, fundamentally, we must understand children don't need your help. That's number one.
Hmm.
That is not the way at all how Angie plays. Number one. Secondly, they provide fake
Toys.
objects.
Hmm.
Their brick is very light. So they give already, they only give the form. There is no materiality. There is no understanding of real life. Understand? Which completely kills the whole purpose. So then that becomes a play. It is no longer cognition. Understand that? So it's called anti-play. That's a problem with it. So when you differentiate play as something different from learning, you've already killed it. Understand? See, this needs far. Actually, to my mind, it's very simple. As I've been telling, the whole task is actually to understand what is implicit, explicit. So first and foremost, you must create an environment for implicit imbibing of knowledge. Imbibing of knowledge at an implicit level. And then there has to be a reflective process by which you turn what is implicit explicit. Second thing is that it is not at all important for everybody to get into trap into this. See, for example, do you think everybody need to be Panini? Or you think it is okay that we all know how to speak very well? You understand? So actually, life doesn't need explicit knowledge. Life requires implicit knowledge. Simple. So life gives implicit knowledge to all living beings, including an ant, a tree. Every living being has implicit knowledge of life, or implicit knowledge. It is with implicit knowledge that life is sustained. Explicit knowledge is probably required only when, see, for example, today it is required because we need to clarify what is wrong with modern knowledge system. Only because of that, we must, at least some amount of, see, I just want to share with you this, that my brother's son did not go to school for 12 years. He was in the farm doing all kinds of activities. So when he went and did his, 12th or whatever, he got very good marks in physics, mathematics, and chemistry. He was quite bad in language and biology. Biology is basically a language thing. Biology is not science. Mugging up few terminology is what biology, But so he got very good marks in physics, mathematics, and chemistry. That's only because he had already lived all the principles. So when he went to school, it was only a matter of giving names to things that he already knew. He was very easily able to understand what is Fulcrum force, because he lived it, The problem is that we educated, most of us still doesn't know what is all these things. Am I right? Because we have never lived those things and we have never had chance to connect these things. That's a problem. So we shouldn't be wasting time. If somebody is interested in knowledge, then it should be in a manner that you really get committed to that. It should be like that. See, I think we shouldn't be wasting time in life. What that simply means is that you must enjoy what you do. It means only that. You must commit yourself to action. Do you think any child ever wastes time till they go to school? No. They are totally involved in every activity they are doing. So that involvement is what is important. And what that means is that they are living in timelessness. That's what it means, actually. A child is completely involved in activity means they are living in timelessness. So they learn boredom only because they go to school and do things that they don't like to do. Yeah, through that.
Hi, Jinan. Good to see you
Hi.
again.
Hi.
I think I did ask this question in one of your last 7-day session, but I just wanted to reiterate again
Sure.
to clarify and understand on more aspect. Should we even think about the culture or religious to integrate with upbringing of the child, or that should be as natural as we discussed about, other cognitive aspect?
I think the modern way in which culture and religion and all that is held is very dangerous for children. It's as bad as the school. You know, I would see the way we need to reimagine everything. We need to reimagine all that. You know, see, to me, an act of learning, true learning, is an act of it's a religious act. You know, I don't see tapas any different from involvement in anything that you're doing, actually. You know, a potter who is absolutely involved in pottery is a tapasi, actually. And he is in meditation. You see, if you look at the traditional life, they are always present because by nature we are supposed to be present. And traditional life processes have ensured that you're present all the time because we never mechanized actions. The moment you mechanize action, you mechanize your mind. When you mechanize your mind, mind and body get fragmented and you become absent. You know, even if a potter is doing the same pot that 10,000 times, he still needs involvement and presence. You know, and that presence is what ensures that you are in a meditative, you know. I mean, of course, they will not say they are meditating or anything, but that is meditation. It's like no child will ever say they are meditating, but they are meditating, because they are present, totally involved. They are playful, you know. They have a mind of a rishi, They get angry, but within few seconds they forget it. They fight with somebody, but they've forgotten in few. So the whole thing is to get back to contentment. Contentment is our nature. This is what I feel. To be contented. So children always get back to contentment. And how we kill it is that we don't allow this temporary things. These temporary things becomes permanent in their life. Then they get away from contentment and they are then bored. Boredom is actually a result of doing what you don't like to do. Boredom is extension of time. Time get extended. That's what boredom means. Time is not going. So opposite of boredom is absence of time. All right, so we'll stop here. Any new person, any one question I can take new one people, otherwise we'll stop. Hi, Celine.
Jinan, just as a follow-up question,
Okay,
people who
okay.
are living outside of India,
Pardon?
how we can, the people who are living outside of India in a different continental, how we can contribute or come together at a one platform, to contribute or to be part of these experimental cognitive sessions.
You can also think about it.
Right.
Yeah, but there are groups, and so see, I've created a support group, which if you can, and there are several groups we can start sending you these that different groups that are exploring different things. I also have a group that is supposed to help out what we are trying to do, both in terms of what you call that, digital or writing and all that. So some or the other way you can help us with that. So yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Jinan. Can
Hi.
you hear me?
Yes,
Hi.
yes.
I was listening to your conversation. I just wanted to say thank you. I really enjoyed the content. I have young boys. So this is very interesting for me, obviously.
Yeah.
They go to school And it troubles me a lot because like I see their spirit dying with time. And the school is not even a private school. In my understanding, private schools are kind of going the extra mile to kill the child
Yeah.
spiritually than a regular random school. So yeah, I mean it's a tough it's definitely, you said at the start, Kay, you know, this will scare you. And I am a bit scared right now. How to transition my boys to a life that is more, you know, it reminds me of like in earlier time, things that I had seen my grandfather live with, the knowledge that he had.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you have to, sorry to ramble on, but like you have to find, I have to find a balance because like we're entrenched, like right now between
Yeah.
work and 2 hours, maybe maximum for your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a few questions related to my boys and I will just write it down and send it out to you. But I wanted to say thank you. This has
Yeah.
been really helpful to kind
Yeah.
of open up my mind a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, see, one very important thing I want to tell you is that don't feel guilty. None of us are responsible for this.
Yeah.
Things have happened in a certain manner, completely beyond our control. You know, so there's no point because, see, I also have an adopted child. I have not been able to do anything of what I'm talking about, you know, and she came to my life almost 25 years ago, you know. But so the thing is that that shouldn't stop us from truly exploring what we should be doing, you know. And I keep telling this that this may be a 1,000-year project. Of course, it has a potential for change anytime because every child is coming with this original possibility. But the external conditions have become so bad that, you know, but the promise is always there. Every child is a possibility for a complete change. So the 1,000-year can become maybe 10 years also, you know, who knows? So, okay then, huh? All right. So I will anyway inform you other groups and things like that. If you are interested, you know, you can join. And we are planning a few more, you know, sessions like this, looking little deeper into some of the issues of, especially the one that we have in mind is something called as womb wisdom, where we want to have more and more, uh, you know, parents, would-be parents who are willing to trust their womb instead of an expert. But of course, there is that we have no support of that. We can only tell that it is important, that there are few things that we can of course share, and there are also parents who have done it. So maybe create a small support system where you you know talked with other parents who have actually taken the courage of completely discarding the you know, trusting their life, their own womb rather than, you know, other experts and books. So a few things like that I think are important. That's what I feel. I don't know. Okay.